Welcome to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Doctor Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. I'm Doctor Squee and this is my show. I hope you guys are well. This week we're doing something a little bit different, a little bit special. So, sadly, just the other week we lost Patti Yasutaki, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Probably not. So I do apologize. She was Nurse Ogawa, a reoccurring character on Star Trek: The Next Generation. So, as always, when a celebrity dies, I like to pull an interview if I've had one from the archives. So I've gone back to the archives, the audio archives. Before this was a video show, when I used to do interviews on my Doctor Who podcast. Sometimes I do specials for Star Trek. So I spoke to Pati and Gates McFadden, who played Dr. Crusher on Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I've added some other interviews. This was recorded at Sci-Fi Ball, which is an amazing event here in Southampton. So it's a bit sort of complicated to explain, but it's been running for years here in Southampton. I hope it's still an ongoing concern. But sadly, I also want to give a shout out to Brett, who was behind the event. Sadly, he passed away a little while ago. I believe I did give a shout out on the show at the time. But I'm hoping the show will continue on forward because it's an amazing event, an amazing time always had by all. Such a gracious, generous, and accepting atmosphere always at that event. So I hope it's continuing. But if not, either way, let this stand as testament. It's an event which is run for charity for the Teenage Cancer Trust. And so I spoke to Patti and Gates. These were usually like it would vary depending on the guest's schedule, but they were often shorter interviews. So maybe between 5 and 10 minutes even. So I've packaged together a few interviews. So we've got Patti and Gates. We've got Gary Graham, who played one of the admirals on Star Trek Enterprise, as well as doing some of the fan productions. He played the Vulcan Admiral. We have Terri Farrell, who played Dax in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So we've got a host of Star Trek legends here on the Doctor Squee Show tonight. And it just seemed like a fitting way just to pay some respects to Patti. Not only was she amazing in Star Trek, she also was a great activist for Asian rights in Hollywood. And just a wonderful, lovely person. So we celebrate her tonight. So for these interviews, what often happened was because either by the request sometimes of the guest, because they'd be doing a lot of interviews, so they requested those podcasts that sometimes they'd go in together, as Gates did for the interview I did with her and Patti. So I'm joined for that one by some people who became my friends later. So it's Spindles and Emily from the Wonky Spanner Network, which please do check out wonkyspanner.com, where you will also find my other show, one of my other shows, Due South by Southeast, which is on audio form there, also available in video on our YouTube channel. During the interview with Gary, and I'm going to look at this just to make sure I get the name right, I was joined by the Can't Pause Us podcast. And during the one with Terri Farrell, I am joined by someone, but unfortunately I don't have their names. And I don't think I ever did because when I went through the episodes, basically I've cut out these interviews and removed any original intros I did. But unfortunately, their name wasn't there, which probably means for one reason or another, I didn't get it. I think what happened, if memory serves, was I did ask them, and I couldn't hear what they're saying. And I think they said it a couple of times. And young me got too embarrassed to ask again. I think that's what happened. You may notice a lighter, younger voice Squee in these interviews. But that's what we're going to bring you today. They are I'm not going to stop them in between times to do intros, but they are separated by a little transporter noise, just a little bit of fun so you can distinguish between the interviews. And I would say these are in audio form, so these recorded back in the day. I've added some pictures taken with the guests alongside, just for something for you to look at. But unfortunately, there were no videos taken of these. But I hope you enjoy these. R.I.P. Patti, and I hope you enjoy all these interviews with some Star Trek legends. Please enjoy this week's show. So maybe we could start just by talking about like how you first started on Star Trek and meeting Gene Roddenberry, maybe.
Well, he was in. That's going back.
I could start
we could
else,
start it in elementary school. No, I came into a room and I did a scene from Naked Now, and I actually had to be persuaded by him to take the role because I wasn't aware. I had never seen Star Trek, the original one. I had seen the poster of the iconic three, Spock and the Captain and the Doctor, but I had never watched an episode because I was doing theater every night, so I didn't really, and I couldn't afford a TV for a long time. So those were the reasons. But he kept saying, you should do this, and I actually turned it down to go do a play with Linda Hunt for very little money because I was such a theater, And then he kept saying, I think you were really making a mistake here. And he was right, He was right.
Something might come of this.
Yeah, something might come of this. And so, and then I got to meet Will, and I think that was my last of the. That was when they finally, for sure offered it to me, and they called me back, and I'd said no twice, and then it was like yes, because I loved Will Wheaton. Yeah. I had seen him in
Stand By Me.
Yeah, Stand By Me. I thought he was so brilliant, and I really adored him. And so, what a great energy! It was just like that was great. And Patrick had come down to see me in the play that I did, right? So, and I hit it up with him, and so it was great.
Thank you, sir.
What was the question? I'm sorry. I got caught up in his story.
It's all right, but starting off in Star Trek, and if you got to meet Gene Roddenberry, and
I never had the honor of meeting him, and I'm always sorry about that because I was actually a huge fan of the original series.
Sure.
And so when they asked me in, I actually was offered the role of what do you call it? A bridge.
Yeah.
Right person. I'm sorry, I'm inarticulate.
Comms or one of the
I was hired for that, and I was shooting actually a commercial for about a week, and we had just laid down the first scene of that commercial, and a commercial of all things, right? And so I could not get released from the commercial to go do Star Trek, which broke my heart. Yeah. And I thought, well, there the opportunity kind of flew by and went. But casting, thankfully, who just loves theater people, and I think that's why there's so many theater people on the show. She loved theater people, and she would always scour, who's around from that world, and that's who they brought in. So she had known my work from theater, and so she would continue to bring me in, which was great, even after I had to turn down that other job. Now I'm super grateful because I probably would have only been in that one episode and never be seen again because they were always switching people off the bridge. Sure. But when they brought me in for the nurse, then that all worked out. And then I thought I'll never be back again because it was in a time sequence where I didn't think I could travel time to be back. So they brought me back anyway. So I guess people just don't think about the fact that I would have been this many years off from what everybody else was. And so they just kept plugging me in for some reason. And it later evolved.
Like the recurring characters like a Brian.
We never know. People always say, we never knew. I never knew which was my last episode or what until maybe the very last year when they did say, and there was more character development, relationship development, things like that. But up until then, it was always, it's like Christmas time when you get the call. They want you to come in on another episode. And it's like, oh, okay, let's go.
So what do you think it is about Star Trek and Next Generation in particular that's resonated and made it such an iconic show over the years?
Well, this is certainly not the first time any of us have talked about this, but it's very apropos right now. I think it's the fact that there's a hopeful future, and that actually you can, that there will be a future, that people will have the Federation guiding them in this way of learning how to understand someone else's reality has just as much validity as your reality, and that you have to find ways of compromising and tolerance, and you have to really address the complexity of issues and problems. They are not simple solutions. It's not just black and white. It's a billion shades of other colors, and that is something, when we're used to tweeting and doing everything so quickly, it's hard because people want it now. They want, is this good or is this bad? And it's not like that all the time. You can't say this person's good, this person's bad. You can say they have this strong feeling and we have this strong feeling. So I think Star Trek was a tremendously powerful show because it had sort of an allegorical story every time. There was something that you really could learn from it. You could sit down with the family, and you not only would get to know the characters, but you would see how they could be in situations of distress and find solutions and find ways to be inclusive. And that's I think it's not a dystopian view. It's not the Orwell vision of the future, because that is the anxiety, certainly, that I have. I worry a lot about that right now. And if you can have something that gives you hope, it's nice.
Absolutely.
It's exactly that. It's a sense of humanity is important, and the fact that mutual respect, despite differences, is there a way to reconcile differences and still have mutual respect? And if nothing else, just common courtesy. There's some things that somehow get left out that maybe should be front and center while things get sorted out. And so it's, I think, important that a show like that's going to be seen by millions and millions of people, sort of remind us that that's achievable, if nothing else. Maybe the solution is not apparent, but that the means to get there can be civil, can be respectful, can have a sense of empathy, can have a sense of humanity. Those things are really reassuring. And so it's exactly what Gates was saying. That sense of hope that route is perhaps the route, other than, people trying to blow each other's heads off.
And it's that thing of also, Star Trek would show you some strange looking person, a strange planet, and I think we have so much fear about things that we don't understand. And so we are quick to be self-protective, and we throw judgment on them, and we close off so quickly because we're frightened. And I think that's something that the show did very well. We did provide role models, and you didn't necessarily, you could find things that Q said that were right, and you could find things that Picard said that were right. It's not everybody was completely right or completely wrong. And it's getting people to think, isn't it? I mean, instead of reacting before they think. It's not about impulsiveness. It's about thought and caring for the future. Caring if we have an environment. Caring to protecting it, protecting each other. Yeah.
We're just about to have a new Star Trek show in Discovery. Like, what advice would you give to that new crew going on to a new show that you've learned from your experiences?
I would not. I would just hope that they would have hope. I really do. That's all. I would say, I know that it's a challenge in the world of Twitter and things that happen so quickly. It's a challenge not to have to do tremendous amount of CGI and a tremendous amount of battle scenes and ships breaking up. But I hope it's not. I don't think I have a right to say that I hope they should do it this way. I have no idea what is the right way. They'll have to muddle through it themselves and figure it out. And I think they have a great cast, which is exciting. So I know that they're inclusive already with the cast. I just hope that it's something that offers hopeful ideas, things that we can maybe learn from.
Lovely. You're in kind of one of the unique positions where you've done official Star Trek and you've done fan productions. Can I just ask, number one, how did you get involved in going from the official to the fan? And also, what kind of place do you think those fan productions have in the grand scheme of things, if they have a place?
Well, first of all, how you get involved in them is you're asked. And everybody likes to be asked to the party. And Many actors, I'm sure, are very protective of their career. In italics, capital letters, their career. And I am sort of a shoot from the hip, wading in. Maybe I should maybe I should be more protective of my career, but I'm not. I think a career, it should your work should speak for itself, and the career should take care of itself. I'm just not one of those who is meticulously sculpting and manicuring, and I just don't spend a lot of time thinking about career.
So I think
about
it, go for it, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And what governs whether I go for it is whether I think it's well written, and the people that I'd be working with, and the location, things like that. But mostly it's the story. It's the story and my confidence in the competence of who's going to be telling this story. And are they going to serve it well? Or is it just going to be when you've been in the business long enough and you've done enough schlock work, you just go, God help me, don't put me in another one of those. So that's it. I'm less protective of my career than I am of my experience as a human. I just don't want to get in certain situations of being around incompetence or people who don't know what they're doing.
Probably a good plan.
So I want to ask you, while we're on Star Trek, about playing a few different characters in Star Trek, so both in Voyager and Enterprise. And also, of course, getting to go to the Mirror Universe and being a bearded Vulcan. I mean, come on, is there a better accolade?
I know. It was such a bizarre before I really understood. I mean, I did read the script, but maybe too hurriedly. I was confused. I just didn't really get it, and what was the point of all. But it seemed that everybody in the cast was somehow in this mirrored parallel universe where their doppelganger is opposite kind of stuff. So I just thought, okay, Saval, measured, logical, now is emotional and illogical, and I'm musing about all this stuff, and we're running scenes with Jolene Blaylock, and suddenly she, who has always been so logical and typically Vulcan, is suddenly throwing me around and getting all passionate and sexual, and I was discovering I was flummoxed while we were shooting it on camera, and I was just taken back. I didn't know what to do, and I saw it and I said, God, that's perfect for the scene, and that's exactly what I felt. Surprised, I didn't have to rehearse it. It just, yeah. What was the question?
Well, it's just about playing different characters within the Star Trek universe, also being in Voyager.
Oh yeah. Me, I don't distinguish. I don't distinguish between science fiction and non-science fiction. I just don't. It's in fact, I've been asked the question: Do you do things other than science fiction? I go, God, you should IMDb me sometimes. I got a long list of credits. I've done stuff that's nowhere near science fiction. It's just that those shows, those movies, those television shows, they don't have conventions.
Yeah.
That you can go to. It's just the sci-fi people. But God, it's so fun to play a different character, whether from a different species.
Yeah.
Tanis in Voyager was a hoot to play, with these extrasensory perception powers and answerable to a mysterious force, Asperia, I think her name was, and then a death scene to end all death scenes for me, with blood coming out of all orifices and just writhing in pain. Who doesn't love to do that?
Just bring back to the fan generated content. What do you think the place is for those kind of productions? Would you want to see more of them?
Oh yeah. I think it's reflective of how rabid we all are as fans to see more of Star Trek, and it's really the producers of Star Trek should just be delighted. It's instead of insulted or challenged or threatened by, i.e., Axanar, they should welcome more fan productions and more quality in fan productions. The better the better quality, the better for everybody, really, because it propels the whole franchise and the offshoots into the future, and it's, call it an homage or just wanting to play, wanting to tell these stories. The same thing that motivated Gene Roddenberry. The same curiosity and adventuresome spirit. So yeah, God bless them and good on them for all the fan films. I love them.
I'm going to have to wrap that up, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. First question: why do you think the Star Trek franchise is still so popular?
Because it's good. No, I think that Star Trek represents hope for a better future for most of us, and although I haven't seen all of Discovery, I've heard that the future might not be bright for some of the characters. Seriously. I think that Star Trek does represent a positive future for most of us, where most of us get along, that things are better, that there are less prejudice, and when there are conflicts, it's generally over something real, not something as superficial as, where you're from or what color your skin is or what have you.
So, Rejoined was quite a risky episode for the network at the time.
Yeah.
Did you feel any pressure from the network while she was shooting the episode?
I think the only pressure we felt about Rejoined was when the kiss was actually happening. Avery Brooks made sure that he was shooting it in a single shot so that they couldn't cut it and minimalize it. And so that was the only pressure I felt on the set, other than knowing that what we were doing, because obviously I read it, was not super heavy-handed about it being a same-sex relationship. It was more important that we were breaking with the code of honor, that we were both joined Trill and we weren't meant to be going back to relive our past lives with each other. And I think that they did a really good job of making that the important element in the story. But when the show aired on the East Coast in America, as it was revealed what the show was actually about, they started to preempt it, meaning they pulled the show from the night's lineup. So as you went across the United States, people didn't see that episode.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
At that time, yeah. It was really upsetting.
That's horrible.
Yeah, isn't it?
I didn't know that. That's
And playing Dax, obviously it's a character that's hundreds of years old, there's been so many people. How do you go about attacking a character like that?
Well, in the beginning, they didn't know how to attack it either. So what they did was they really focused on the fact that Jadzia was a newly joined Trill, and she was adjusting to all of the information from the symbiont. So as we were figuring that out, and I was just playing the part of being a science officer, then they threw in an episode called Dax, where I was defending the honor of somebody Tandro. It's so funny. Why would that name pop in my head? But I was defending her honor for Curzon, which was the entity right before before Dax or Jadzia. And so then they showed how she had a struggle of carrying on something that wasn't hers. Right? It was Curzon's, not hers. And then it just grew from there. But at first I looked at it as like in life we have chunks of our life, or at least for me, that were very different. We moved a lot when I was a kid, so I tried to think of that as sort of a lifetime. This is who I was when we lived in this school district, and then we moved, and then that happened, and then I was into sports, and then I became a model, and I lived in New York, and so I tried to segment my life to try to make it feel like I could connect to having different lives. But then ultimately it just felt like if I was 350 years old, what would that feel like? So if I were 90 years old, what would that feel like? You know what I mean? Try to just constantly try to bring it back to what could I understand? 90 I can understand. I want to be, when I'm 90, a wise, compassionate, very open, understanding person. Well, I think that you'd probably have to be that way to move through the world in a positive and constructive, contributing back to society. If you get angry and you don't know why you're here, and then plenty of people go there, but then I wouldn't be Dax. So anyway, that's how I started to approach it. And then they just added elements, like when Ira Bear said, you're going to be more roguish this year, and this was the 4th season. And I started battling with the Klingons because Michael came on, and then, Michael and I flirted with each other in a scene intentionally. Well, if we got to add that we're flirting with each other, maybe they'll write more stuff for us. And they did.
Yeah, I was going to say, did that work out?
Yeah, I think pretty good. So, basically what you have to do anyway as an actor is play what's happening, and what do you want? What will you die if you can't get when you're in the scene? What is it that drives you through it? That what is your live or die thing in it? What's your passion? And so that's very specific, and I can't, if I'm fighting a Klingon, I can't be thinking about that, I'm really this feminine sweet thing that is trying to seduce someone. I'm focused on killing that other character, whatever it is, or person. So you're just focused on one thing at a time, and then over time in storytelling, it looks like you're a very kind of complex to complicated person.
Why do you think conventions are so popular, and why do you think this specific one is so special?
I think conventions are popular because they're fun, and because everybody's accepted who they are. You're welcome. Bring your freak flag and enjoy yourself. This one, I think, like all charity ones, the people that are here to make a difference. So you're having fun. You're making a difference. You're giving back, and that is, I think, in the whole vein of Star Trek. So you're living the dream of having that utopian life where everybody helps everybody else. Everybody wakes up. Oh, that guy's never going to get it. Oh, in the Star Trek world, he will. Like that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Are you saying that conventions are amazing because geeks get laid?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
That's staying in. That's staying in.
Oh my god.
Advocates multi-award winning.
And that was this week's Doctor Squee show. R.I.P. Patti Yasutaki. Again, I'm probably butchering her surname, and I do apologize for that. But I've done my best shot of it. Thank you very much to my other guests, Gates McFadden, to Spindles and Emily from the Wonky Spanner Network, from Gary Graham and the Can't Pause This podcast, and Terri Farrell and the Unnamed podcast, which I do not know the name of. Please look up all those wonderful people, apart from people I can't remember the name of and they don't introduce themselves on the clip. And I hope you enjoyed this week's show. I've been Doctor Squee. That was my show. And in a world where you can be truly anything, please live like you've got two hearts and be kind.